Good morning, folks. Welcome to Shop Talk number 33. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Robert O'Brien. And I was looking at my notes here, and the last time that I did one of these Shop Talks was in April. And a lot has happened since April, so I'm going to fill you in on everything, talk about what's been going on and what will be going on here at the Luther Academy and O'Brien Guitars. Thank you very much to Jim Deeming for the excellent intro music there. I certainly appreciate him. Check out his website at jimsguitar.com. He's a local finger picker right here in Colorado. Does a fantastic job. My guest today will be Jeff Jewitt, who needs no introduction. Jeff is the finishing expert. He's world renowned as the finishing expert, and we'll be bringing him on here momentarily. So go ahead and have your finishing questions ready for him. Also sign up for the free giveaway, and to announce the free giveaway, we always give away some online courses here during the live streams. I've got Cesar and Manuela all the way down there in São Paulo, Brazil. There they are, Cesar and Manuela. Good morning.
Hello.
And
good morning.
They are really not in my shop. They're using a green screen with a picture of my shop in the background. They really are all the way down there in São Paulo, Brazil. And welcome aboard. By the way, Cesar and Manuela have been married 5 months as of yesterday. Congratulations. There we go.
Thank you.
And yesterday just happened to be Manuela's birthday. So another round of applause for Manuela. You will also notice that they are wearing the Luther Academy very popular t-shirts there. I was in Brazil recently. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. I was in Brazil recently, and obviously I took them the Luther Academy t-shirts there. So welcome, Cesar and Manuela. What are we giving away, Cesar, and how do people enter the drawing?
So today we are giving away some of Jeff's courses, and to enter and to participate, it's pretty easy. There is a small link at the top of the chat box here in YouTube. All you have to do is click that link and let us know about your information so we can contact you. And that's
perfect. All right. So you guys heard it. Do what Cesar says there. Click on the link. Provide your email address, your name. Here in a little bit, we'll be giving away some free courses. Thank you, Cesar and Manuela. I will be getting back to you here in just a few minutes. Thank you. All right. Recently, I just mentioned I was in Brazil, and the first thing I did is I dropped in to see Cesar and Manuela. I've got a few pictures here I'm going to pop up and show you. So there is Cesar and Manuela. The day that I arrived in Brazil, I look a little bit jet lagged there. I had been traveling for almost 20 hours. I got off the plane, went straight to see Cesar and Manuela, and here's just a few pictures. They offered me a fantastic lunch. And by the way, for those that don't know, Cesar and Manuela perform Baroque music. Manuela performs on the Baroque violin, and Cesar is an organist and harpsichordist. So there's a little trivia there for you about Cesar and Manuela. And this is Cesar's father, Antonio. We caught him at his bench there at his house. This guy's working 24/7. So I dropped in and saw him. It was always good to see him. I met Cesar when he was about 2 or 3 years old, and his father graciously taught me how to build classical guitars. While I was in Brazil, I took full advantage of the cuisine and visited a Brazilian steakhouse among many other restaurants. There I am having a nice meal with some family and friends there. Also, something else that I did in Brazil, I visited Brazilian luthier João Casillas. And João and I are developing a brand new course about semi-hollow body electric guitar construction. And we built that guitar right there in 6 days. That will be an upcoming online course. Once we got done with that, I got some work out of the way, and I was able to do a little relaxation out at my cousin's country house there. And for those of you who know where that is, it's in Santa Isabel, just about an hour and a half or so outside of the city of São Paulo. And was able to do a little relaxation there, recharge the batteries. And then when I got back to the States last week, I already built a guitar with a student. There she is, a student that came here from Colorado, and we built a guitar together. So as you can see, I have been very busy. I hope you have been as well. Let me just check in here on our chat box, see who is joining in here. Craig down there in New Mexico, welcome aboard, Craig. Gary in Flagstaff. Jim from Oregon. Cesar, of course, he's in Brazil. Kenneth from Long Island. There's Jeff Jewitt in the background there. He's got his mic on. We're going to bring him on in a minute. James Martinez. He's going to be in Tacoma. He's in Fort Lauderdale now. Good. Jason, Gavin. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. Certainly appreciate it. Just a few quick announcements before we bring Jeff on and get going here. I mentioned the new course that João Casillas and I are working on. There's also another course that I've been working on. Let me just pull up my website here. This one has been in the works for quite a while. And if you look at the website there, CNC for Luthiers is a brand new course coming up. That was done by Bob Mizek of Roberts Luthery. I met him last year at the Mark Adams School of Woodworking. He took Jeff's and mine, took our finishing class. And he has put together a fantastic course on CNC for Luthiers. It will be available shortly. Also, the 6-day classical guitar building course has been out for a few weeks now. It was at 10% off. If you missed that, contact me. Maybe I'll give you another 10% off. That one's also been well received. A couple of more quick announcements. I will be at the Guild of American Luthiers Convention in Tacoma, Washington, starting July 5th is the opening day. I will be giving a lecture on that afternoon. 2:30 in the afternoon is when it starts, on humidity, relative humidity, and how it affects wood, moisture content in wood. That goes through the 10th. However, I will be leaving on the 9th because I have to be in Indianapolis the next day to teach a class with Jeff Jewitt. And we'll talk more about that here in a minute. We taught the class last year. It's a fantastic class. Also in August, I will be at the Northwood Seminar at Brian Gallup's School of Luthery there in Michigan. There are still a few places available in that, I think, if you want to get involved in that. That's August 21st to August 25th. And so it's going to be a busy summer. Got a bunch of other stuff in the works there too. All right. Well, let's go ahead and bring on the one and only Mr. Jeff Jewitt. Here he comes. Nice round of applause for Jeff. There we go. And you'll notice that Jeff his resolution is much better than the last time I had him on. And he told me that that's because he got some high-speed internet installed just yesterday. Is that correct, Jeff?
5 minutes before we did the technical check.
That's amazing. Well, it's looking really good. You're looking sharp there in your Jeff Jewitt acoustic guitars. By the way, check out Jeff's website. He has two websites. One is Homestead Finishing, where you can order up finishing products. The other one is his acoustic guitars, and he's got some fantastic instruments on there, so go check out his website. Jeff, you ready for some questions?
I am.
All right. I've got a bunch of them for you here that people sent me even before this chat started. So I got some that I got by email. Also, if you guys in the chat box have any questions, go ahead and type it in there, and I'll do the best I can to go ahead and monitor the chat box there and ask your questions. The first question I got was from a guy, and he must be an engineer or something. But here's the question. He says, one question I have is whether anyone has tried using the ceramic finishes that have been introduced for automobiles. They yield a super hard glossy finish and thinking they might be super durable and attractive. Now, apparently, this guy has an engineering background in wave technology. He always started talking about P waves, S waves, how they travel, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's probably more of a question for Trevor Gore. But the question he had for you, Jeff, is have you ever tried the ceramic finishes for automobiles?
I have not, no. They are relatively new. My understanding is the finishes have like some sort of a nano particle in it that obviously is optically clear, and it allows you to get a little bit of a harder finish. Now, these finishes have been around.
It's just your old part. That's what was wrong. Just sign with your finger.
Okay. I have to sign for a repair here, so give me a second, and then
sure,
I'll be
no
right
problem.
back. I think I'm all set. Good. Yeah, I had to get the old forklift fixed.
Oh,
and
no.
That's what I had to have replaced.
Looks like a solenoid.
Condenser.
Condenser. Wow.
Well, yeah, for those of you, this is circa 1976 engineering, so I think it's a condenser. Anyways, back to the ceramic finishes. I do think they've been around for a while as floor finishes. As far as the engineering aspect of it and getting into what might be interpreted as frequency impedance or frequency transmission, on a positive or negative scale, I obviously that's above my pay grade too. But I would say that it's always kind of dicey to try new finishes that are specifically designed for other products on musical instruments, because you can get into some unforeseen things that happen. When the first finishers tried using the automotive finishes, they found that they weren't drying correctly, and they were drying a little bit too soft, because those finishes were engineered to go over plastic and steel, not wood. Right. And wood moves. Those products don't so much. So you can get into issues. Right. That said, the finishes that I currently use now, and the finishes that Robbie and I will be teaching students on how to use next month, are automotive grade urethane finishes. And from my experience, I'm sold on them. I can apply them thinly. They buff out great, but best of all, you can buff them really the next day after you apply them. Right. Which is what we'll be doing in that class. Yep. So I guess the answer to the question is no, I haven't tried them. I wouldn't see any issues with using them, but I guess you just have to see. Yeah, we'll have to get like Trevor Gore on that one, and maybe somebody else.
that's kind of what I responded to this person. I sent him an email response, and he was talking about P and S waves and longitudinal and cross grain stiffness. And I told him a story years and years ago, maybe about 20 years ago. I sat in on an Asia convention panel. There was Kent Everett and there was Thomas Humphrey, very famous classical guitar maker. And Kent was under the impression that the lacquer finish, well applied, could perhaps add some cross-grain stiffness to the top, thus enhancing the sound. And Thomas Humphrey, God rest his soul, was having nothing to do with it. And the discussion got very heated. Neither would I.
If I was in that panel, I have the same reaction when somebody gets on a panel of finishes, and the vintage experts or the dealers or whatever, and they say, what they like about nitrocellulose lacquer is that it allows the guitar to breathe.
Yeah.
And my response to that is as follows. Gentlemen, I'm no physician, but the last time I checked, a guitar, God rest its soul, does not have a respiratory system and doesn't need to breathe. It doesn't need to be fed, and it doesn't need to be nourished any more than it needs to be put on a leash and walked around the block 4 times a day. So that's my opinion on that.
There you go. I also mentioned, I said, look, there's some great finishes out there that have been tried and true, like the catalyzed urethanes, the UV cure polyesters, and that kind of stuff. Why experiment with something that's fairly new that we know nothing about yet? So yeah, that's kind of what I said. All right, so here comes a question from Steve Foss. It says, hi, Jeff. The last time I searched for 3M P-grade sandpaper. Any suggestions where to look? Love your videos. Any suggestions where to find P-grade sandpaper? Because I know you mentioned that in your videos.
Well, okay, just to kind of, put this into context, the P grading system is a European grading system. And so any of the European manufacturers will all use the P grade. That includes Mirka, Klingspor, Unida, and the like, and the like, and the like. 3M uses both grading systems. And if 3M has a P in front of the grit number, it's the P grade. If it does not have the P or the capital P in front of the number, the grit number, then it's not. It's the old well, what we call the CAMI, or the Coated Abrasive Manufacturers Institute grading system. Generally, I would say the 3M free cut gold paper is all P grade. So if you search for that nomenclature, free cut gold, actually the sandpaper that I like using these days for rubbing out the finish, though, is made by Eagle Abrasives, like the bird, spelled like the bird. And they don't even use the P grade because they're Asian. They use some kind of K grade or J grade or something like that. But it's almost a drop-in replacement for P. So, right. The 3M papers are good. If you go to the free cut designation, it should be P grade. The Imperial designation, if you see Imperial wet or dry, that's the old CAMI grade. But again, you'll see the P noted on the back of the sheet of sandpaper. It should be in the description for the sandpaper.
Okay. Another question I got from an email before the stream started, as long as we're on the subject of sanding and sandpaper, what is the difference between dry sanding and wet sanding, and is one better than the other? What's your opinion, Jeff?
Well, the whole reason for the invention, if you will, of wet sanding a finish is that some finishes don't dry sand well because they clog the paper up prematurely. And finishes in that category would be varnishes, a lot of varnishes, would be lacquer and shellac. Water-based finishes and the catalyzed finishes that we use don't clog paper that well or that much. Wet sanding, what it does, because when you start making finer and finer grits of sandpaper, the abrasive particles are closer together because they're finer, they're smaller.
Right.
Hence, you don't have what is called, you can't have what is called an open coat designation. You may see that on the back of some sandpaper that are used for wood. Open coat means in that there's enough spaces in between the abrasive particles for sawdust and bits of the wood and whatnot to lodge in, and they don't necessarily impede the action of the sandpaper. You can't do that when you get into really fine grades like 2,000 and 3,000 and on up. So you switch to a what is called a wet dry paper. Wet dry is a term that was invented and trademarked for a while by the 3M Corporation. And what it is, they usually use a silicon carbide grit abrasive, and the backing paper is waterproof. So instead of using a hide glue to make the sandpaper, which is actually what they use, it's hide glue, right, to make a normal garnet paper, they use a phenolic resin or a waterproof glue that doesn't break down. My preference is to dry sand when rubbing out as much as possible. And the main reason for that is that when you wet sand, the application of the water or the lubricant on the wood will give you a false illusion of how thick the finish is, and it's hard to see what you're doing. And when you might be sanding too much and going through and getting, actually going into wood, you could be going into wood, but because the water is making it look like there's finish on it, you don't know that. So
yeah, that happened to a friend of mine once.
It's happened to a number of friends of mine. Actually, we have a conference every month about it.
All right. Here's another question. This is from Jason. He says, how can one achieve a satin finish using shellac that will not burnish to a shine through handling? That's a good question.
Well, if I lived up in Maine and I spoke with a Maine accent, my response would be, you can't get there from here or there, meaning it's not going to happen. All finishes, the only finish that won't do that would be something like a conversion varnish, which is what Martin uses on their satin necks. And even those, they tell you it will burnish up after a while, and you got to steel wool it. Shellac, I know of no way of doing that. You just, periodically, once you want to get it back to a satin finish, just hit it with some steel wool.
Right. So that's
The
the
catalyzed
secret there.
urethanes.
Go ahead.
The catalyzed urethanes would be about the best for that. But even then, on the guitars that I've made with a satin finish on it, you play it enough, it will burnish up.
Yeah. And so the secret to get it back to a satin then is just steel wool. Do you use any type of lubricant like a wax or something, or just straight steel wool?
It depends on how dull you want it to look. If it's a really kind of a low satin, use the steel wool straight with no, or what we call dry.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to dull it down too much, use a little bit of a lubricant with it. You can use thin wax. You can use, I just use Dawn dishwashing detergent in a little bit of water.
Okay.
You can use the rubbing lubricants called Wool Lube, which is made by Mohawk. Some of those work, but it doesn't matter. They're all, they all kind of do the same thing.
Jeff, I remember in a recent conversation with you, you talked about finishing the inside of your guitars, which is also a great topic for discussion and why you do that. But I think you mentioned a way that you flatten the sheen of the shellac. And if I remember correctly, it's talcum powder?
I don't do that. I used to, many years ago, this was going on 25 years ago, I was approached by several museums, the number one of which was the Met in New York. And what they wanted to have was like some sort of an additive that they could put into shellac to make it look more vintage or, less shiny,
Right.
kind of like more like an old shellac finish. So I came out with a product called Shellac Flat, which is what I used to do, which was just no more than ground up silica in alcohol with a little bit of a binder in it. We discontinued that product, and these days I've switched over to a product that's made for lacquer called Mohawk Flattening Paste, or flatting paste for lacquer, and it works just fine. And that's what I use, just because I don't like a really high shine or high glossy finish on the inside of guitar. I think it, distracts things. I want it to look more like, well, the natural wood if it didn't have any finish on it.
Right.
Now, the reason I started doing it was because I didn't have this. This happened to two friends of mine. They had two guitars that came back to them because the wood was starting to check and crack on the back.
Right.
One was Cocobolo, and the other one was East Indian rosewood that was kind of a figured wild grain one. And ever since then, I've been sealing the inside of the guitars with shellac before I put the top on. And I haven't had that problem since. The other reason I do it is I was shipping a lot of guitars to customers that would take them to Florida from the northern states. So in other words, they were snowbirds, and they would, leave Wisconsin or New York or wherever and go down to Florida for 6 months and take the guitar with them. Well, those sudden abrupt changes in humidity, as you know, Mr. O'Brien, it's not so much the change in humidity, it's the abrupt change in humidity that
Right.
causes issues with wood movement.
Right.
And when wood moves very quickly, that's when you get into trouble. Sealing it on the inside will mitigate it or kind of slow it down so that it will react to the humidity, but it will do it more gradually, and that's what we want.
Right.
Correct, Senor?
Yes, sir. Great answer. For you folks going to the Guild of American Luthiers convention in Tacoma next week, I will be touching on the subject a little more in detail about wood movement and moisture content. Here comes another question from Jason. What is the best way to repair a buff through on a French polished back? Asking for a friend. Well, actually, French polish is pretty easy finish to touch up. Wouldn't you agree there, Jeff?
I'll let you answer that, Senor, but basically, I don't do that much French polishing. But no, you just put more shellac on it.
Exactly.
Basically, what I would do, and this is important because a lot of people don't know this, but if you used a pedestal buffer with the buffing wheels with the stick compounds, the binder that holds the abrasive particles in those stick compounds is wax. So make sure you clean that surface really well before you put more shellac on it. And so what I would do is I would wipe it down with some naphtha, give it a very light scuff with maybe some 600 or something like that, P600, and then go ahead and then just continue on with your application of shellac. I'll let Robbie answer the best way to do that. Probably, I think what I would do though is I would probably build up that surface with maybe, putting on a few brush coats of shellac, or getting it a little bit thick so that you could kind of cut it back.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with this, me and my friend. Actually, I'll tell a story to answer this question. I got a guitar from the East Coast one time, and the person called me on the phone and said, hey, I've got some finish damage right behind the bridge from it rubbing in the case. I took it to my local guitar center. They told me this was shellac and to rub alcohol on it. Well, you can see where this is going, right? Pretty soon he's got a big hole in the shellac, went all the way to bare wood. He calls me out of desperation, ships me the guitars. I open up the case, and sure enough, there's about a 4 or 5 inch diameter hole right through the finish, directly into the wood. The problem was it was a very, very thick French polish finish. Now, he said it was French polish. I think it was sprayed, and it also had a color in it. So now we got two problems. How am I going to match that color? How am I going to get that build? I wound up stripping the top, putting my own French polish back on it. It sounded better too because it was very, very thick finish. I did it in half the time the other guy did. He was very happy. So basically there are two types of finishes. There's one that is evaporative and one that is reactive. And Jeff has big terms for these, scientific terms. I just use reactive and evaporative. So evaporative, there's two types of finishes in that category. French polish, shellac and lacquer. In other words, you dissolve a resin in a solvent, you put it on a finish, it evaporates off, you're left behind with the resin. Those finishes build in one single layer. The more coat you put on, it blends in the previous coat. I believe Jeff calls that cross-linking. The other category, reactive, which includes all the other finishes out there, including oils, they build in layers. And so those are harder to repair. If you sand through one layer of finish into the other layer of finish, you get what's now called a shadow or a witness line. Those are hard to repair. You can't spot repair. You have to do the whole surface. It's like a car door. You can't just paint the ding. You got to paint the whole car door. So since it is a shellac finish, it's much easier to repair because it's an evaporative finish. So there you go. Add more on and go for it. Hopefully you didn't get enough into the wood. We need to address the pore filling aspect. All right, let's get into another question here. Boy, we got a lot of questions here, Jeff. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see. Oh, this is quite a long question here. Hello, Jeff. I'm just starting on a build with white oak back and sides and a Sitka top. Ultimately, these finishes will be dyed black using trans tint. Oh, look at that. My questions are as follows. And here he's got another place here in the chat. Should I use anything on the wood prior to hand rubbing the dye diluted with water to prevent blotching? Great question. What do you think, Jeff?
On the oak back and sides, no. You can just apply the dye. Although you can experience a phenomenon with oaks and other really large open woods in that the dye won't seem to penetrate into the grain. But I'm going to leave that up to you because you probably will be filling the grain, and so you would just use a black paste wood filler after that in your schedule to get that nice black color. As far as the spruce top goes, yeah, they can splotch or stain unevenly. It's just the way that almost all softwoods are. You can get around that one of two ways. One way would be to spray the dye on the top and don't wipe it, or try not to wipe it, or try not to wipe it very much. Spraying the dye will apply it more evenly, because what causes the splotching is not the dye or the wood, really. It's the physical act of wiping the dye into the wood. And it's those softer areas or the resin parts of the spruce, and then the softer parts that just give you that uneven coloring. The second way of dealing that, and this would be the way that I would do it. Now, a couple of things about black. There's blacks where you can see the wood underneath, which is a transparent black, which would be achievable with transient, or there's solid opaque black colors, like what you would see on, say, like a Martin guitar or a Collins guitar, or most Fender guitars. Those are solid paint colors. So you would not want to use a dye. You would want to use a black paint. But if you want to use a black dye, I would seal it first with your sealer, and then I would get your black color with the transient by spraying it on as a toner, or kind of like the technique would be like a sunburst. But you would just spray it on and then just stop when you like it. I like that just for the fact that basically you have a lot more control over it. And, when you get to the point where it looks good, you just stop spraying. So that's the way I would do it. That sounds like it's going to be a cool looking guitar. So send us some pictures when you get that thing going. If you need some help along the way or down the road, you can get my email info off my website, jewittguitars.com, and shoot me an email or send me a picture.
There you go. Here's part 2 of that question. I will be using light colored wood binding and rosette. What is the most idiot-proof way to protect these so they don't take any of the dye?
Okay, now you've just introduced a whole turnaround to everything I just said before. The most idiot-proof way of doing it is to tape off the binding with some sort of pinstriping or thin tape, and then again spray your color on after sealing it. And you could do that on the oak as well. That's the way that I would do it. That way, what you can do is just you would seal these techniques are covered in my online course, Sunburst Made Simple. But basically, when you do something like that, you seal the guitar first with some sort of sealer. You can use shellac. You can use the sealer for the finish if there's a special sealer for it. Whatever you want to do, seal it, sand it, and then do your taping after that. Once you get everything sealed and taped off, then have at it with putting the color wherever you want, and you won't get the color on the binding, and most importantly, it won't leach under the tape, which is what will happen if you try to just tape off something and then wipe color over it. That just doesn't work.
Yep. Along those same lines, did you finish, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. Along those same lines, here's another quick question from Foster. How to use a sealant to stop bleeding to the top? I'll just take a quick stab at that one. I do a lot of French polish here in the top, or here in my shop. And when you're using rosewood bindings or other types of bindings, when you wipe the shellac on there in your initial seal coats, it pulls that color into the top. So what I do is I take a cotton ball, very small edge, kind of form it so I got a little pointed edge on it, and I wipe a little bit of shellac around the top of that binding. You have a buffer between your top and the binding, and usually it's your purfling line, and that doesn't bleed, but the rosewood will. So I do 2 or 3 passes around there, and that seals it up enough that I can then come in and put the shellac on without worry about bleeding into the top. Is that what you do, Jeff?
In a sense, I do, but I do it the Jeff Jewitt way. What I buy, I go online and I buy these refillable, make your own magic marker. They sell you like a felt tip, like the felt tip, and they sell you the barrel and all that stuff. And instead of putting like an ink in it or something like that, you put shellac in it. And then you have a magic marker with shellac on it. And it really is super easy to apply to binding.
Nice. Okay, great. Now, you mentioned your Sunburst Made Simple course, and which is a great course, by the way. Why don't we give one of those away? You up for that, Jeff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, sure.
Let's do it. All right, so I'm going to take Jeff and I off the screen. We're going to go down to Brazil. We're going to visit Cesar and Manuel again. Hey, they haven't gone to sleep yet. How many people have entered for the drawing here, Cesar?
So we have in total 35 people for this.
35 people. All right. Let's go ahead and, Manuela, press the magic button.
Yes.
Number
38.
38. Who's number
Oh,
38 today?
let me just explain one thing. The number
Okay.
this round starts on 5. So we go to 5 to 40. Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. Yeah, that's how I eliminate duplicates. So let's see who is number 38. Let's switch to the spreadsheet. Number 38 is Jeff Delfield.
Jeff
I
Delfield,
hope
it
I'm
looks like.
pronouncing that
Congratulations to Mr. Jeff Delfield.
correct.
Hey, you get Jeff Jewitt's Sunburst Made Simple course. It's a fantastic course. Thank you so much, Cesar Manuela. And Jeff, Cesar will be in touch with you, and he'll give away the course to you. All right, let's get back up here to Jeff and I. There we go. Jeff, I want to talk a little bit about the class that we taught last year. And as we do that, I'm going to pull up some pictures here. Let's see. Hey, there we are. There's Jeff and I. We are at the Mark Adams School of Woodworking in Franklin, Indiana. And we taught a class last year on catalyzed urethane finishes, professional high gloss sprayed finishes. And let me just run through some pictures here. It was a fantastic class. You can see me doing my thing there. Not only is it just a finishing class, but it's much, much more than that. I mean, we go through every aspect of surface preparation, pore filling, inlays. We talk about how to fix stuff. I think there's even a picture of Jeff in here. There's a picture of Jeff doing a pore filling technique, which, by the way, we teach several different pore filling techniques. Here's a picture of Jeff ironing out a ding in a top. I mean, we show it all. And you get to be with us for a week and pick our brains. Oh, this picture I put in here, Jeff, because this is a picture of Jeff doing a magic trick during the class. As you can see, that guitar is suspended in midair. And that's because of Jeff's magical finishing powers that he used during the class. See how he's using his hands there to help keep that thing in midair. That's kind of fun we have in the class here.
That's good. That's good.
I hope you can do that trick again this year, Jeff.
I hope we can.
So this is what we taught last. Yeah. There's Jeff doing his thing. Last year we finished what, about 15, 16 guitars, if I remember correctly?
Yes, it was. Yes, 16 at least.
Yep. There we are doing some sanding in between coats. And here's some of the finished products after the 5-day class. Beautiful, beautiful high gloss, catalyzed urethane finishes. So if you're up for learning this type of finish, July, was it 15th or 16th? No, July, heck, I don't remember the dates anymore. Do you remember, Jeff?
It starts on July 10th and goes through the 16th.
There we go. July 10th to the 16th, and you can learn how to do these special high gloss finishes. We also teach how to do sunburst. This year, we're actually going to cover frequencies and top frequencies and how the finish affects that and what ways that you can dial in top frequencies before you actually spray the finish. So it'll get a little bit better shot at hitting the bullseye with tonally.
Yep.
Anyway, so there we go. Let's get back to a few questions here. Unless you have some comments about the class, Jeff, you'd like to make?
Well, the class really, we use urethane as a finish just so that we can complete everything in 5 or 7 days. But a lot of the techniques and ways of finishing in general, or for spraying a clear finish on guitar and grain filling, they can be applied to just about using any sort of finish. Whether if you want to spray lacquer or you want to use another type of finish, you can do it even water-based. But you just have to allow for a little bit longer time before you start buffing it out. We're going to be, talking about proper spray gun setup, maintenance, and troubleshooting. As Robbie said, we'll probably have time or plenty of time to do like a sunburst demonstration. So we'll be talking about taping off a guitar, which we've actually hit on in, this event right now. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you'll learn. And if you've never been to Mark's, it's quite an extraordinary school. All your needs are taken care of. I mean, you get, all you got to do is show up and pay for some sort of a place to stay at, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic time. We have a lot of fun. We all go out to dinner in the evenings. This year, Jeff's going to do a concert on one of his guitars. So we're going to have a good time. So and not only that, you get to pick Jeff's brain and my brain. I mean, we got over 50 years in the business here together. So it's a great way to just learn a whole bunch of stuff about finishing and other stuff. So if you're up for that, it's coming up real soon. There's still a couple of spots left. Let's get back to a few questions here. From Alexander. Jeff, if you didn't have a sprayer, what top 2 finishes would you choose to get a high shine for an acoustic steel string guitar? Oh, that's a great question.
That is a great question. I would look into, there is a, I don't mean to cross-pollinate the teaching or the, type of, material that's out there, but there's a really excellent archtop guitar maker by the name of Ken Parker. I'm sure you've heard of him, Robbie.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a YouTube series called Ken Parker's Archtoppery.
Yep.
And he does a fantastic finish using epoxy as a pore filler, which is what we will be using in our class. But he uses True Oil as the top coat finish. Now, he only applies 1 or 2 coats, so he gets kind of like a low luster in the wood type of look, but you can apply more coats and build that up to a pretty high shine if you want. And I've seen some really, really nice finishes using that technique. In fact, I just saw one that was done by a colleague of mine about 40 minutes away, Ryan Gerber of Gerber Guitars. And that would be probably the way I would go. You could, if you don't like the smell of solvent-based finishes, which is what True Oil is, you could try, there are some wipe-on water-based finishes. Stuart McDonald sells one. And there's also, I believe, a General Finishes. There's a number of them, wipe-on water-based finishes. So, yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay.
No problem.
Here comes another one from Craig. Craig, sprayed my guitar with shellac and started getting air bubbles shortly after application. Is this a temperature problem? I live in southeast New Mexico, and our temps are in the 100s. Oh.
Well, I assume when you say shellac, is that shellac or is that maybe?
Yeah, it's a shellac base. It's by the maker of Royal Lac, VJ out there in California. So he makes a seal coat that's also shellac based.
Yeah. Okay. This is my stock answer to kind of like that question. When the temperature is that high, I think it's time to go grab a cold beer and a chair by the side of the pool rather than finishing a guitar. I mean, you really need to do something other than look at finishing guitars. Aside from that, I don't know if you are able to control the environment where you spray. It doesn't sound like you can. So if that is the case, you have to contact the manufacturer of that finish to see if they sell an additive that you can put in the finish to get rid of the air bubbles. That is called in the jargon of the finishing world, it's called Solvent Pop, and it is a very common problem. It's always due to humidity, or environment. And usually the way that we take care of it are with solvent additives, possibly to slow down the rate at which the finish is drying. In your case, what more than likely is happening, and if you can sort of envision this, if it is a shellac-based product, you have a fair amount of alcohol in there, or some sort of an alcohol. In high temperature, a liquid transitions from what we call the liquid phase to the gas phase. Okay, and it's in that transition that there's actually a physical chemical law. I think it's called Charles's law or Boyle's law of gases or something like that. But basically, the transition from that, it things cool, kind of. It's the same phenomenon as putting alcohol on your skin. It feels cool because basically the evaporation of the solvent, we're losing heat. And that usually causes problems with air bubbles. You're getting air entrapment. You might be getting water entrapment. So yeah, it's just a whole host of problems. Usually, the best thing to do is to contact the manufacturer and see if they've got a performance additive that they can add to that finish to deal with it. But really, go grab a couple of beers.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. You've already got one strike against you if you're trying to finish in 100-degree weather. Most of your labels on the sides of cans and the instructions they say it, these are the parameters, and usually about 70 degrees Fahrenheit with a relative humidity around the 50% mark is what they do their testing at.
Yep.
So you're already outside those boundaries asking for trouble. All right, here comes another question. Have been using Semtech sanding sealer. It's a polyester grain fill directly on bare wood. Your thoughts on an Isolante sealer first? Should I use it? Should I not? What do you think, Jeff?
If that is a polyester-based grain filler, absolutely 100% yes. If you're working with a rosewood or any Dalbergia, quite frankly, sometimes you don't know because there's a lot of weirdo wongo woods these days. I just go ahead and use it on all woods, whether it's maple, mahogany, rosewood, whatever. I would use an Isolante first. The reason for that is that the mechanism by which polyester hardens, if you want to call it that, or cures, is that mechanism is impeded by the oils, if you will, that are in some woods, rosewoods specifically, all the Dalbergias, teak can do it, and some other woods. So yes, I would definitely do it, whether or not it's a rosewood or not. I always use Isolante first before any polyester product. Now, to just follow up on that, the other thing that is you can't do with polyester, don't put polyester over any dye-based product. The peroxide catalyst that is in a polyester that's part of the curing process will actually change the color of some of dyes. We've seen that a number of times with our product, particularly any of the blue dyes. So be careful with that too. But I've had a number of people call me saying they put polyester over a sunburst, and it was no longer a sunburst. Ouch.
It was a mess. Here's a response to your response earlier about Ken Parker's finishing process. The guy says it's very easy, forgiving, and a great result. So yeah, very good. Here's another one, rub-on poly. Is that okay? The wipe-on polys. You ever use those?
Sure. Yes, I have. I've used them on necks actually, the satin ones, and yeah, they're fine. Just make sure you give them time to cure, and oil finish specifically do not like really cold weather application, and high humidity can also be a little bit of a problem too. So you also have to be a little bit careful. But no, they're fine. Good.
Yeah. Here's another quick question I got here, and we're coming to the end of our time here, from somebody via email about the best product for thinning a water-based finish. And a lot of people think it's water. I bet you have a different answer, Jeff.
Well, yes, in an ideal world, it would be a blend of water and some of the solvents that are in the water-based finish, what we call a generic or glycol ethers.
Yep.
But it's going to be very difficult for you to get, some of those. So you can usually safely, in my experience, add up to 20% water without really causing any issues with a water-based finish. Above that amount, what you will do is you will change the physical chemistry of the finish, and you can affect its ability to wet out. In other words, it will tend to want to beat up, if you will, for lack of a better term. So you may get in some issues with that. But and then the other thing too is don't use tap water. Use distilled water. It's more, doesn't have any minerals or any sort of, God knows what's in, well, I don't know, but, particularly if you live in a rural area and you might be working with well water, I wouldn't use well water, but just distilled water.
Okay, here comes another question. I have your catalyzed urethane online course, which I found very useful. In the course, you used a polyester base coat. Can I use just urethane on and omit the polyester? So he wants to, in other words, he wants to omit the sealer. Are you using the polyester as a grain filler sealer? He just wants to use the urethane itself.
Yeah. On certain woods, yeah. Like if you have a closed grain wood like maple, or if you have maybe cherry or even walnut, some of the smaller grain woods that don't necessarily need a grain filler, yes. If you don't want to use the polyester, you can substitute epoxy, which is what we will be teaching the class when we do it next month. We're not going to use a polyester to fill the grain. We're going to actually use epoxy. And Robbie O'Brien, I think in one of your Lutherie tips du jour, or one of your something you have on YouTube, covers a grain filling process using Z-epoxy.
Yes.
Which is, you can get just about anywhere. Quite frankly, this is kind of funny. I'll just tell a real quick story. I thought for many, many years that John Grevin was the father of the epoxy pore filling technique, because he's the person that I always heard it attributed to and pore fill to. And last winter, I was talking to Jeffrey Elliott, because I wanted to get one of his pictures for an article that I was writing, a picture of one of his guitars. And we were talking about pore filling, and I said something like, according to John Grevin, who I, know is like, the originator of the epoxy pore filling technique. And in the background, I heard this woman screeching and yelling, and it was Cindy Burton. And she said, no, I invented that. And I told him, and he ripped me off, and, just on and on and on and on. So there you go. It's Cindy Burton. So I asked Cindy, I go, well, what epoxy do you use? And she goes, whatever's available at the hardware store.
Wow.
So it's not a product I would necessarily, don't use the 5-minute, but, just really you can use just about any epoxy. The trick, though, is before you put a finish over it, is sand it and then wipe it afterwards with a 50-50 mix of water and denatured alcohol to remove any of the residual hardener that might be in there. And that residual hardener is, we have a term for that, it's called amine blush, and it causes finishes like lacquer and others to turn cloudy. Yep.
Here's a follow-up question to that. It says, what was the West Systems epoxy hardeners used to fill the grain? The hardener, I think, is what he used to say. In the class, we're going to be using System 3. The interesting thing about System 3 is you can recoat it without sanding. The Z-epoxy, you have to sand between coats. Jeff mentioned a YouTube video I have. It's a very quick 8 or 10 minute video. It shows how he applies Z-epoxy to a guitar. In my 6-day classical and 6-day acoustic or steel string guitar building courses, I have a full chapter on pore filling, and I show in detail how I apply Z-epoxy to the guitar. But I think I know.
I think I know the question he's asking is West Systems has 2 different hardeners, a fast and a slow. Mm-hmm. I think you want to use the slow. I think it's called the 205 is whatever the slow one is. They have 205 and 207, but use the slow hardener, not the fast. All
right, let's get to just a couple quick more questions here. Go ahead.
No, I take that back. Use the fast hardener. Excuse me. It's the fast hardener.
The fast hardener, okay.
The fast hardener.
All right.
It's a 4-hour cure.
Just a couple of quick questions here, then we're going to go do another giveaway, and then we need to sign off. Gavin is following up with his questions. He says, thanks. If no polyester over the die, what do you recommend to grain fill on the top of the die directly applied to the wood? Because you mentioned there's a problem with bleeding and blotchiness.
You can use epoxy. You can use a sealer coat, and then you can use an oil-based paste wood filler. There's a bunch of different, there's a bunch of different fillers that you could use. A lot of it depends on the type of top coat that you're going to be using, but you can use just about anything that you want. Yeah.
Okay. Here's one from James. Jeff, how would you repair a nitrocellulose finish that has started a small check at near the corner of the bridge? Maybe glue boost instead?
I don't like using glue boost on nitrocellulose finishes because the solvents that they put in the Glue Boost are actually the same family of solvents that are in lacquer, and what it can do is it can soften the lacquer. I would just use thickened nitrocellulose.
Yep.
It's what we call drop filling technique. I would just do that. Now, the other thing I want to add to this is, why are we getting a small check at near the corner of a bridge? I would look at the bridge to see maybe if there's, some lifting going on or anything like that. But you may want to, kind of delve a little bit deeper into that. But I would use nitrocellulose lacquer on it. What you can do, if it's a small check or a crack or whatever, drop in some thinner for it first to kind of wet it out.
Yep. That's been my experience. I prefer drop filling lacquer over lacquer repairs. The synthetics like polyesters and urethanes and stuff, the Glue Boost works fine. Works really good. One last question. Then we're going to go down to Brazil again, do another drawing. Here's a person that says, Jeff, I love your videos. Do you plan on making more? That's from Larry in Texas. We put Jeff on the spot here, didn't we?
My. You put me on the spot. Yes, I am. They may not necessarily be finishing related. I've got some techniques in guitar building that I've been refining over the past couple of years that I may do something with. And Robbie and I were talking about this the other day with doing a laminated side, how to do laminated sides. And the other one is how to do a glueless neck, a 3 bolt-on or a total bolt-on neck system. But finishing, probably, I don't know. I think I've just about done as much as I can do with finishing. Unless, of course, we maybe start doing a ceramic clear coat automotive finish class. I don't know. We'll see.
Gosh, I hope not. All right, let's pop down to Brazil real quick, and Jeff, what should we give away? I was thinking maybe the catalyzed urethane course, since we're going to be giving that in person.
That would be a good one. Yeah.
All right, so let's go down to Brazil. There's Cesar Manuela still with us. Let's give away a catalyzed urethane course, Cesar.
Okay. So for this round, we have 10 more participants. We have 45 participants.
Okay.
So let's see.
Oh my! Yeah. So we get the actual high-tech counter.
Number 40.
Number 40. We're all even. Let's see. Number 40 is Steve Williams.
Steve Williams. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
There you go. You're going to get Jeff's catalyzed urethane course. And for those of you who didn't get the course, if you can make it to Indiana next week or here on the 10th, we're going to be teaching it in person, and it's going to be much, much more than just a finishing course. I think we have time to give away just one more course. Jeff mentioned that he does other courses other than finishing courses. He has one now currently on the Luther Academy website about the perfect neck set. And that gives a lot of people trouble. Let's give away one of those. Perfect neck set.
Perfect neck set. Okay. Another round. And
19.
19. Let's see. 19 is Gavin Gravois. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that.
All right.
But
congratulations,
Gavin. Yeah. I recognize that name.
I recognize it. Yeah. Good deal. All right. Well, congratulations to Gavin as well. All right. Thank you, Cesar Manuela. I'm going to sign off.
Thank you.
And thank you. And happy birthday yesterday, Manuela.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
All right. Very good. Well, Jeff, I think we've done about as much damage as we can do in one day. So thank you once again for tuning in. Jeff's a regular here on the Luther Academy and on the Shop Talk live streams. He really knows his stuff. Check out his website. And if you can make it to Indiana, it'd be worth your effort. I guarantee it. Oh, yeah. So thank you so much, Jeff, for tuning in. And I will have you back on, I'm sure. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Congratulations to the winners. And over and out. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.